A poor girl's fight for respect in a world of wealth. The invitation, Lily. Matthews sat by the window of her small apartment, the morning sunlight spilling across her modest furnishings. The warm rays bathed the room in a soft glow, but it didn't change the reality of her life. Life in the quiet part of the city was simple but hard. She lived with her grandmother, Gloria Matthews, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when Lily was just a toddler. Despite the hardships they faced, Gloria's love and unwavering belief in Lily's potential kept them going. Lily had always known that things were different for people like her who lived paycheck to paycheck, scraping by, dreaming of a better life. She worked as a waitress at a small family-owned cafe, serving coffee to businessmen and tourists alike. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and that was more than many people could say. Her life took an unexpected turn when she met James Harrison, the son of one of the wealthiest families in the city. He came into the cafe one rainy afternoon, looking tired but charming, a stark contrast to the suits and ties that most of the cafe's customers wore. Lily had served him a cup of coffee that day, and their eyes met as he thanked her with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. It was simple, yet everything about him seemed to carry an aura of elegance and grace. Over the next few weeks, their conversations became frequent. James returned to the cafe, and Lily began to look forward to their chats, learning about his world, one filled with luxury, fine dining, and extravagant parties. He was kind, down to earth, and had a genuine interest in her life. One evening after Lily closed the cafe, James took her out for dinner at a high-end restaurant. It was an unfamiliar world to Lily, one of expensive wine, elegant decor, and polished waitstaff who treated her like an outsider. James noticed her discomfort and reassured her, holding her hand across the table. She tried to hide her unease, but the truth was she felt like she didn't belong in that world. The clothes she wore, the way she spoke, everything about her screamed outsider. But James didn't seem to care. He liked her for who she was, and that made her feel special. As their relationship deepened, James introduced Lily to his mother, Victoria Harris. Victoria was a woman of immense beauty and grace, her presence commanding attention in any room. Lily felt like a small fish in a vast ocean when she met her. But Victoria was nothing but polite, perhaps even warm. At least that's what Lily thought, but there was an underlying tension that Lily couldn't quite put her finger on. Victoria, though outwardly charming, seemed to watch her every move with calculating eyes. She wasn't exactly unfriendly, but she didn't seem entirely welcoming either. James reassured Lily that his mother was just protective of him, but the more time Lily spent with Victoria, the more she began to feel like she was being scrutinized. Then one day, without warning, James invited Lily to his family's grand annual gala, an event hosted by none other than Victoria herself. Lily was hesitant at first. She had never been to anything like this before. The world of wealth of high society was foreign to her, and she wondered if she'd be able to fit in. James, however, insisted. "You're my girlfriend, Lily. You belong with me. Trust me. You'll be fine," he said, his eyes filled with sincerity. Victoria had apparently prepared for Lily's arrival. A dress was delivered to her apartment the day before the event, an elegant black gown with delicate lace and intricate beadwork. It was beautiful, though. Lily knew it was far more expensive than anything she had ever owned. But she wore it with pride, hoping that it would help her feel more at ease in a world that she didn't understand. She even put on the silver heels James had gifted her, though they felt awkward on her feet. On the night of the gala, Lily stood in front of the mirror, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. She wasn't used to this world. She was used to waiting tables, making small talk with customers who barely remembered her name. This was different. This was James's world, but she didn't want to let him down. She wanted to be a part of his life, and this was her chance to prove that she could handle it. When the taxi pulled up to the Harrison estate, Lily felt her heart race. The mansion in front of her was beyond anything she could have imagined. The towering pillars, the perfectly manicured lawn, the glistening windows. It was everything she had seen in movies but never thought she would experience. She took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, feeling a knot in her stomach. James was already there, standing by the entrance, smiling when he saw her. He took her hand, leading her inside the grand mansion. "You look stunning," he whispered as they walked down a long corridor. Lily tried to smile, but her heart was in her throat. She was completely out of her element. Victoria was there to greet them. "Lily, you look lovely," she said, though there was something in her tone that made Lily feel small. The way her eyes scanned Lily from head to toe, assessing every detail, didn't go unnoticed. It was as if she was sizing her up, judging whether or not she was worthy to be a part of the family. The party was a spectacle of wealth and opulence. The guests were all dressed in the finest clothing, sipping champagne and discussing business deals. Lily felt out of place, but she tried her best to stay composed. She smiled, made small talk, and listened intently to James as he introduced her to his friends and business partners. But all the while, she could feel the eyes of the room on her. Some were curious, some were dismissive, and some were downright condescending. As the evening wore on, Lily noticed a growing sense of discomfort. She overheard a conversation between two women near the bar, their eyes lingering on her dress. "Is she one of the help?" one of them whispered, laughing behind her hand. Lily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She tried to ignore the comment, but it stung. Victoria, ever the perfectionist, soon made her move. She led Lily to the center of the room, where a grand chandelier hung above them, its crystals gleaming in the soft light. "I do hope you're enjoying yourself, Lily," Victoria said, her voice smooth as silk. "It's not every day we get someone from your background at one of our events." The way she said, "your background," made Lily's skin crawl. James, noticing the tension between them, looked from his mother to Lily, sensing that something was off. "Mom, can we please not do this right now?" he said, his voice firm, but not harsh. But Victoria merely smiled as if the conversation was already over. The evening took a turn when during dinner a guest, one of Victoria's close friends, made a cruel joke. "You know, I thought she was one of the staff at first," she said loudly enough for Lily to hear. The comment was followed by a round of laughter. Lily's face flushed with embarrassment, but she held her head high. She wasn't going to let them break her. James, visibly upset, tried to intervene, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The humiliation burned deep within Lily's chest. She felt her self-confidence slipping away. How had things gotten so bad so quickly? After what felt like an eternity, Lily excused herself from the table. She needed air. She needed to breathe. James followed her, but she could feel the weight of his mother's gaze behind her. It was suffocating. Standing outside on the grand balcony, Lily gazed out over the estate, trying to calm her racing heart. She couldn't believe this was happening. This was supposed to be a celebration, a night to remember. Instead, it had turned into a nightmare. James found her a few minutes later, his face filled with concern. "Lily, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd treat you like that. You don't deserve it." Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and frustration. "I don't belong here, James. I never did." She wiped a tear away, not wanting him to see her weakness. "Maybe I was fooling myself, thinking I could fit into your world." James, his face softening, took her hand in his. "You don't have to change for anyone, Lily. You're perfect, just as you are. I don't care about the wealth, the parties, or any of this. I care about you." But Lily didn't believe him. Not yet. She was too hurt, too disillusioned by the world she had just entered. "I can't do this, James. I need to go home." She turned and walked away, leaving James standing there, unable to stop her. He watched her disappear into the night, realizing that the world he had been born into wasn't as perfect as he had once believed. Lily made her way back to the cab, her heart heavy with disappointment. She had tried, but she wasn't sure she was strong enough to survive this world. The struggle for acceptance. The night before, she had lain awake for hours, replaying the cruel words Mrs. Eleanor Harrison had said to her, though she had mentally prepared herself for it. Nothing could have truly prepared her for the disdain and condescension Mrs. Harrison had shown. The way she spoke about family and social status, things that Lily could never change, made her feel small. As Lily made her way to the small cafe where she worked, she couldn't help but wonder if she was strong enough to continue this relationship with Chris. She knew that the love they shared was real, but the world Chris lived in, the world of lavish parties, extravagant wealth, and a constant focus on status, was not a world that accepted people like her. Every time she stood next to him at one of those events, she felt like an outsider, like a ghost among the living. She tried to shake off the thoughts as she walked into the cafe, but the weight of the situation was hard to ignore. She had a job to do, and the customers didn't care about her personal struggles. Still, the thought of Mrs. Harrison's party hanging over her made her feel even more out of place than usual. Lily woke up to the soft morning light streaming through the window of her small apartment. The city was bustling outside, but it felt like the world was quiet, almost too quiet for her racing thoughts. She rolled over to glance at the clock. 7:30 a.m., another long day ahead. Her shift at the cafe started in an hour, and she couldn't shake the weight of the conversation with Mrs. Eleanor Harrison the night before. The harsh words, the scrutinizing looks, and the subtle judgment had stung her more than she expected. She had always known that there were differences between her life and the Harrison families, but hearing them spoken aloud so pointedly made the gap between them feel insurmountable. "You're not what Chris needs, Lily. You're not one of us." The words echoed in her mind. They were meant to hurt, to break her down, to make her question her place in Chris's world. And they had done just that. Lily had always believed that love could bridge gaps, that it could transcend differences socioeconomic, cultural, or otherwise. But what Mrs. Harrison had made painfully clear was that some gaps were too wide to cross. The things Lily had struggled with all her life, her working-class background, her mother's struggle to make ends meet, the lack of a silver spoon in her mouth had somehow made her unworthy in the eyes of Chris's mother. She had never felt more aware of her own inadequacies. Maybe she's right, Lily thought as she sat up, her mind swimming with doubt. Maybe I'm not good enough for him. Maybe I'll never be good enough. She tried to push the thought away. Chris had never once made her feel inferior. In fact, he had always been supportive of her, their relationship having grown stronger over the months. But the harsh judgment from his mother stung, and Lily couldn't help but feel that no matter how much Chris cared, he would always be tied to his family's expectations, and she, being the outsider, would always be the one to fall short. Lily dressed in a pair of faded jeans and a simple t-shirt, then grabbed her keys and headed out the door. The cool morning air hit her face as she stepped into the street. The city was still waking up, the sidewalks busy with commuters, and the hum of the morning rush filled her ears. As she walked toward the cafe, Lily's mind wandered back to the night before, the lavishness of the party at the Harrison estate, the crystal chandeliers, the marble floors, the perfectly manicured gardens. Everything about it screamed wealth and status. She had felt out of place from the moment she stepped onto the grounds. Her simple black dress, borrowed from a second-hand store, had felt like an obvious contrast to the designer gowns worn by the other women. She had tried to smile, tried to keep her head held high, but the whispers, the glances, the way people seemed to look right through her, she could feel their judgment in every step she took. And then there was Mrs. Harrison, the way she had looked at Lily, almost as if she were an experiment in poor taste. Her sharp tone, her biting remarks, the way she'd spoken down to Lily had made her feel smaller with each passing moment. "What do you think you can offer my son?" Mrs. Harrison had asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you even understand the world he's in, the responsibilities he carries?" Lily had tried to defend herself, to make her worth known, but the conversation had been one-sided. Mrs. Harrison didn't care about Lily's dreams, her hard work, or the way she loved her son. She only cared about status, about maintaining the Harrison family's image, and Lily didn't fit into that picture. Not now, not ever. She arrived at the cafe trying to shake off the cloud of negativity hanging over her. Her boss, Jake, greeted her with a quick nod as she punched in for her shift. The cafe wasn't busy yet, and she had time to gather herself before the morning rush. She wiped down the counter, organizing the mugs and plates, trying to focus on the mundane task of preparing for the day, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Chris. Chris had tried to reassure her after the party. He had apologized profusely for his mother's behavior and had made it clear that she had no say in their relationship. But no matter how many times Chris told her that it didn't matter, that she mattered more than anything to him, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that things had changed, that this rift between her and his family would only grow wider, no matter how hard she tried to bridge it. "Lily, can you take care of the table?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. She nodded quickly, walking over to a couple sitting near the window, both dressed in business attire. She smiled politely, taking their order and trying to ignore the way her hands trembled slightly as she set down their coffee cups. Her mind was elsewhere, on the conversation she needed to have with Chris, on the deepening divide between her world and his, on how she could possibly continue to be with someone whose family considered her beneath them. It wasn't just Mrs. Harrison's judgment. It was the unspoken truth in every glance, every word, every social event where Lily stood at Chris's side feeling like an imposter. She loved him, but did that love matter when the people around him didn't think she belonged? Lily let out a slow breath as she cleared the table. "I can't keep living like this," she thought. "I can't keep pretending I'm okay when I'm not. Maybe it's better if I walk away now before it gets even harder." But then she thought of Chris, the way he'd kissed her forehead before leaving for work that morning, the way his eyes softened when they were together, how he made her feel like she was the only person in the world. It was the one thing she had to hold onto, the love they shared. But even that wasn't enough to silence the doubts and insecurities that now swirled in her mind. As the cafe filled with customers, Lily pushed aside her thoughts, focusing on the job at hand. But deep down, she knew that her struggle for acceptance wasn't just about fitting into Chris's world. It was about finding the courage to accept herself, to prove that she was worthy of more than just the label of the poor girl. Lily sat by the window of her apartment, staring blankly at the bustling city streets below. The events of the past few days had been a blur. Chris's mother's sharp remarks, her own internal battle between love and insecurity, and now the growing tension she felt in her chest. She had tried to push it aside, to pretend that everything would work out, but the nagging feeling that she didn't belong in Chris's world was becoming impossible to ignore. Her phone buzzed on the table next to her. She reached over her heart, skipping a beat when she saw Chris's name on the screen. "Hey, I'm off work in an hour. Want to meet for dinner?" Lily hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. She had promised herself she would talk to him about everything, the way his mother had treated her, the way she felt out of place in his world, but every time she tried to bring it up, her heart raced with fear. What if he didn't understand? What if he agreed with his mother? Sure, I'll be there," she typed, hoping her voice wouldn't crack when they met. She needed to do this. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, when inside she was falling apart. As the evening came, Lily changed into a simple but elegant dress, one that had been handed down to her by her mother. It was beautiful, but it wasn't extravagant like the dresses she had seen at the Harrison estate. She stood in front of the mirror, running a hand through her hair, trying to steady her nerves. The dress felt like the only thing she could control right now, and that small sense of control was the only thing keeping her grounded. Chris was waiting for her at the small Italian restaurant they had gone to on their first date. The place was quiet, intimate, with the smell of garlic and fresh herbs filling the air. When Lily walked in, she immediately spotted him sitting at their usual table by the window. His smile, as always, made her heart skip. He stood as she approached, pulling out the chair for her, his hands warm as they brushed against hers. "You look beautiful," Chris said softly, his voice genuine, as if he truly saw her for who she was, not who he wanted her to be. Lily smiled, though her heart was heavy. "Thanks," she said, sitting down. She glanced around the cozy atmosphere, a stark contrast to the cold, opulent halls of his family's estate. "This place, it feels so different from where we were last time." Chris noticed the change in her tone and gave her a concerned look. "What's on your mind, Lily?" She hesitated, the words tangled in her throat. How could she tell him what had been eating away at her without sounding weak? But this wasn't about weakness, it was about facing the truth. "Chris, I need to talk to you about something." "Something that's been bothering me," Lily began, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, his expression softening. "Of course. Whatever it is, you can tell me." Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself before she spoke. "Your mother, the way she treated me the other night. It's not just about her attitude, it's the way I feel whenever I'm around your family, like I don't belong. Like I'm constantly being measured against something I'll never measure up to." Chris's face hardened, the concern deepening in his eyes. He reached across the table and took her hand in his thumb gently tracing her knuckles. "I know my mother can be difficult," he said, his voice tight, "but I need you to know something, Lily. She's never going to approve of you no matter what you do. It's not about you. It's about her. She wants me to be someone I'm not, and she'll never accept anyone who doesn't fit her picture of perfection." Lily nodded, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to surface. "I know you want to protect me, but it's not just about her, Chris. It's about the way I feel when I'm with you and them. I feel like an outsider, like I'm not good enough for you. Every time I walk into a room with your family, I feel like they're looking at me, judging me. And I can't keep pretending that it doesn't hurt." Chris's grip on her hand tightened, and for a moment they sat in silence, the weight of her words hanging between them. He squeezed her hand gently, his gaze softening as he spoke. "I never wanted you to feel that way," he said, his voice raw. "But Lily, you're more than enough for me. You're everything I've ever wanted. I don't care about my mother or anyone else. What matters to me is what we have. I've spent too many years trying to live up to her expectations, and I'm done, and I don't want to lose you because of her." Lily's heart swelled at his words, but the fear was still there, lurking in the back of her mind. "But what about the future? What if she never accepts me? What if I'm always going to be the girl from the wrong side of the tracks in her eyes?" Chris reached across the table, lifting her chin gently to meet his eyes. "Then I'll fight for you, Lily. I'll fight for us. And you'll never have to feel like you're not enough again, I promise you that." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. Chris had just given her something she didn't even know she needed, the reassurance that she mattered to him more than anything else. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be challenges ahead, but in that moment she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could make it through. As the evening went on, their conversation shifted. They talked about their dreams, their fears, and what they both wanted for the future. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt like she wasn't carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was just Lily. And Chris, despite the pressures from his family, was just Chris. But in the back of her mind, a new fear began to creep in. What if this isn't enough? What if love alone can't conquer the world Chris was born into? She couldn't shake the feeling that despite everything, there was still a battle to be fought. Facing the future, Lily woke up the next morning with a weight in her chest. She had spent the night lying awake, replaying her conversation with Chris over and over in her mind. He had said all the right things, promised to fight for her, and told her that nothing else mattered except for their relationship. But in the quiet moments when the world was still, doubts crept in like shadows. Could love really be enough to overcome everything? Could she truly fit into Chris's world, a world so different from her own? The reality of the situation seemed so daunting, so impossible. She was from a modest background, one where financial stability was a constant struggle. While Chris was the heir to a fortune, his family's expectations and their social circles were worlds apart from hers. It wasn't just his mother's disapproval that gnawed at her. It was the feeling of being a visitor in a world that wasn't hers to belong to, a world where money, status, and appearance mattered more than anything else. She wanted to believe in their love, but the idea that she could ever truly belong in Chris's life was a thought that lingered, making her heart ache with uncertainty. As she sipped her coffee, she glanced at her phone. A message from Chris flashed on the screen. "How are you feeling this morning? I've been thinking a lot about last night. I know things aren't easy, but I promise I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together." Lily smiled at the message, but the unease remained. She put her phone down, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. She needed to face this, whatever this was. She couldn't keep running from the truth, from the reality of who they were and where they came from. The knock on the door snapped her out of her thoughts. It was Chris Morning, he said, his smile lighting up his face as he stepped inside. "I brought breakfast." Lily stood, her heart fluttering. She hadn't expected him to show up so early, but part of her was grateful. She needed him, needed his steady presence to calm the storm inside her. "You didn't have to," she said, trying to hide the smile that threatened to spread across her face. "But thank you." Chris placed the breakfast on the table and sat down next to her. "I wanted to, and I wanted to see you, make sure you're okay. You've been on my mind a lot lately." Lily looked at him, her heart softening. There was no doubt in her mind that Chris loved her. That was something she could hold on to, something she could believe in, but love alone wasn't enough to smooth over the rough edges of their differences. "I've been thinking too," she said, her voice quiet, hesitant, "about what you said last night, about fighting for us and how you would stand by me no matter what. I want to believe that, Chris. I do. But I also feel like I'm being torn in two. Part of me is so scared that no matter how hard we try, your world is never going to accept me." Chris's expression grew serious, his hand reaching out to take hers. "You don't need to be scared, Lily. I won't let you feel like that. My family, my mom, she doesn't understand, and she might never will, but that's her problem, not ours. We can't let her dictate what we can have." Lily felt tears prick at the back of her eyes. She wanted to believe him so badly, but as she looked at Chris with his easy smile and effortless charm, a part of her couldn't help but wonder if he would eventually choose his family over her. No matter how much he cared for her, the expectations of his world were vast, and she was nothing more than an outsider, a reminder of everything that was supposed to be beneath him. She shook her head, trying to push the doubt away. I don't know if I can do it, Chris. The pressure, the looks, the constant feeling like I don't belong. I'm scared that one day you'll start to feel the same way your mother does, that I'm just not enough for you, that I'm not the right fit for your life." Chris's face softened as he cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tears that had begun to fall. "Lily, you are more than enough for me. Don't you ever doubt that. I don't care about what anyone else thinks. What matters is what we have. You're not just some accessory or some image I'm supposed to live up to. You're my partner, and I love you. Don't let anyone, especially my mom, make you feel anything less than that." His words were a balm to her wounded heart, but the fear still lingered. She knew that he loved her, but did that love mean he would choose her over everything else? Would he stand by her when the world, including his own family, tried to tear them apart? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Chris had to leave for a meeting, and Lily was left alone with her thoughts, trying to make sense of everything. The uncertainty she felt was suffocating. She wanted so badly to escape to a place where none of this mattered, where she and Chris could simply be who they were without the looming expectations of wealth and status hanging over them. But reality wasn't so simple. She spent the evening walking through the park, trying to clear her mind. She wanted to talk to her mother, to hear her words of comfort, but something held her back. Lily knew her mother would tell her to walk away, to protect herself from the pain that was inevitable. Her mother always warned her that love wasn't enough to bridge the gap between the wealthy and the poor. She had seen it too many times before. Just as Lily sat down on a bench by the lake, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, and a pang of dread hit her chest when she saw the name. It was from Chris's mother. "I want to see you. Lily, we need to talk. You know where I live." Lily's heart sank. She knew what this meant. The tension between her and Chris's mother was only getting worse, and now it seemed like she was being summoned to a showdown. The confrontation. Lily stood outside the large gates of the Harrison estate, her heart pounding in her chest. The message from Chris's mother was still fresh in her mind. "We need to talk." The words felt like a summons, one she had been dreading but knew deep down would come sooner or later. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, but the feeling of unease was inescapable. The air felt thicker than usual, the weight of expectation heavy on her shoulders. The house before her was everything she had expected, a towering, imposing structure of wealth and opulence. It was a far cry from her modest apartment, and every inch of it screamed privilege. Chris's family lived in a world that felt so far removed from hers, and yet here she was on the verge of stepping into that world. As she rang the doorbell, she thought back to everything that had brought her here. The awkward dinner parties, the silent judgments, the cutting remarks. Nothing had felt like it was truly meant to be. She had hoped when she first met Chris that love would be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds, but every interaction with his family seemed to confirm what she feared most, that she was an outsider, someone who would never truly belong. The door swung open, and there stood a butler, his expression cool but polite. "Miss Lily, welcome. Mrs. Harrison is expecting you. Please come in." Lily hesitated for just a moment before stepping inside. The grand hallway seemed to swallow her whole. Rich tapestries hung on the walls and marble floors reflected the opulence of the house. It was overwhelming, and for a second she almost turned around and walked back out. But she couldn't. Not after everything Chris had said, not after all the promises he had made. "Lily," a voice called from the stairs. It was Chris's mother, Victoria. Her sharp, assessing gaze fell on Lily the moment she entered the room, and there was no warmth in her eyes, only a coolness that made Lily feel smaller than she already did. "Come up to my study. We have a lot to discuss," Victoria said, her tone clipped as if there were no other option. Lily nodded, doing her best to remain composed as she followed Victoria through the lavish halls. She couldn't help but notice how effortlessly the older woman moved, as if she owned the space around her, as if it was all designed with her in mind. Everything about Victoria screamed authority, wealth, control, and an unshakable sense of self. They reached a large study at the end of the hall, and Victoria gestured for Lily to sit in one of the chairs by the fireplace. Lily did so, unsure of what to expect. Victoria moved around the room, pouring herself a glass of wine, and then turned to face Lily with a look that made the younger woman uneasy. "I'll get straight to the point," Victoria said, sitting down across from her. "Chris has told me about your relationship. I can't say I'm thrilled about it, but he's my son, and I won't completely disregard his feelings. But let me be clear, Lily, this isn't just about him. It's about you and where you fit into our world. And from what I can see, you don't." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She knew this conversation wasn't going to be easy, but the bluntness of Victoria's words stung more than she expected. She had prepared herself for criticism, but hearing it so harshly, so pointedly, made her stomach churn. "I'm trying, Mrs. Harrison," Lily said, keeping her voice steady. "I really am. But I don't think I belong here either. I don't understand this world, and I don't know if I ever will. It's too different from what I know." Victoria raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a small knowing smile. "You don't understand. That's what I've been trying to tell you. People like you, people like us don't mix well. You come from a background that doesn't fit with our lifestyle. Do you think Chris's life, his future, can be a part of that?" She motioned vaguely toward Lily's appearance, the simplicity of her clothes, her modest demeanor. Lily's hands clenched tightly in her lap. Every word Victoria spoke felt like a slap, but she refused to let the older woman see how much it hurt. She had always prided herself on being strong, on standing up for what was right. But in this moment, Victoria's words hit too close to home. "I don't care about the money," Lily said, her voice more forceful than she intended. "I care about Chris. I care about what we have together." Victoria's expression hardened, and she stood up, walking to the window and looking out over the perfectly manicured lawn. "It's not about what you care about, Lily. It's about what he will need. You can't provide the life he deserves, the life he's been trained for, and frankly, it's insulting to think you could." The words stung, but Lily refused to back down. She stood up as well, facing Victoria squarely. "I may not come from the same world as Chris, but I love him. And that's all that matters. I don't need to be rich or powerful to love him, to make him happy. What matters is that we're together." Victoria chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "Love is a luxury, Lily, one that only people like us can afford." The words were like daggers, and for a moment Lily wasn't sure she could take it anymore, but she took a deep breath, holding her ground. "You may think you know what's best for Chris, but you don't," Lily said, her voice trembling but firm. "You don't know him the way I do, and you don't know what we can build together." There was a long silence, Victoria staring at Lily as if she were some kind of puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Then finally the older woman sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. Perhaps I misjudged you, Victoria said, her tone softer now but still tinged with condescension. But let me tell you this, Lily, if you truly care about my son, you will understand that this life, this world isn't something you can just walk into and pretend it doesn't matter. It will affect everything. Your relationship, your future. Lily's heart raced. This was the moment. The moment where she could either stand her ground or walk away from everything. I understand more than you think, she said, taking a step forward, her voice unwavering. But I'm not going to let you or anyone tell me I'm not worthy of loving him. I'll fight for him just like he's fighting for me. And if that's not enough for you, then maybe I don't belong here after all. With that, Lily turned and walked out of the study, her head held high, though her heart was still heavy with the weight of the conversation. As she made her way back to the car, she realized something important. She couldn't change the way the world saw her, and she couldn't change Victoria's opinion. But she could fight for her love with Chris, and no matter how hard it was, she wasn't going to give up on him. Chris's mother might not approve, the world might never accept her, but Lily was done feeling small. She was ready to fight, not just for Chris, but for herself too. The breaking point. Lily woke up early, the soft light of the morning filtering through the blinds, but the peace was short-lived. Her mind was a tangled mess of emotions. And as she looked at her phone, there were dozens of messages from her family, her friends, and even Chris, all asking if she was okay after the events of last night. She hadn't slept a wink. Her thoughts consumed by what had happened at the dinner and her growing doubts about her relationship with Chris. She took a deep breath, trying to shake the nagging feeling of insecurity that had taken root in her chest the day before. Everything had felt perfect. She had felt accepted by Chris's family. But then it all came crashing down when her mother-in-law Margaret had openly mocked her for her background. The scorn in her eyes as she made subtle comments about Lily's lack of refinement and unpolished manners was still fresh in her mind. It felt like a trap. No matter how well Lily behaved, how much she tried to fit in, she would always be the outsider in this world of wealth and privilege. The confrontation with Margaret had been unavoidable. Margaret had made another pointed remark about Lily's dress, an old hand-me-down that was never going to measure up to the expensive gowns the other women in the room wore. "I'm sure it's quite charming, dear," Margaret had said with a tight smile. A lovely reminder of simpler times. Lily's heart sank, but she had forced a smile, trying to hide her frustration. It was as if no matter how hard she tried, she would never be able to bridge the gap between them. After the dinner, Chris had tried to reassure her. He held her hand tightly, whispering in her ear that his mother didn't mean it, that Margaret was just an old woman set in her ways. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that Chris, despite his love for her, wasn't truly seeing the full picture. He was caught between his family and her, and that torn loyalty was becoming more evident by the day. Later that night, when she got home, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window into the darkened streets, the weight of everything pressed down on her chest. She loved Chris, she truly did. But could she keep fighting for this relationship? She was tired of constantly proving herself, of feeling like an outsider, of trying to be someone she wasn't just to fit in. She needed Chris to understand her pain, to see how exhausting it was to constantly fight for a place in his world, a world she never asked to be a part of. The next day, she decided she needed some time to herself. She texted Chris telling him she was going to spend the day with her mom and that they should talk later. She had to clear her head. Lily found herself walking through the park, the cool air brushing against her skin as she walked aimlessly, her thoughts spiraling. What if she wasn't strong enough to handle this anymore? What if her love for Chris couldn't overcome the differences between them? As she walked, she bumped into an old friend from high school, Ellie. They exchanged warm greetings, and Ellie immediately noticed the sadness in Lily's eyes. "Lily, are you okay?" Ellie asked gently. "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Lily sighed and sat down on a nearby bench, pulling Ellie beside her. "It's Chris's family," she began, her voice heavy. "They don't accept me, Ellie. I'm not one of them. I'll never be, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend to be." Ellie frowned, her brow furrowed in concern. "What happened? Tell me everything." Lily hesitated, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. "His mom, she made me feel so small. It's like no matter how hard I try, I'm not good enough. I'm not polished enough, not refined enough. Everything about me seems to be a reminder that I don't belong." Ellie nodded, her expression softening. "You don't have to change who you are. Lily, you're incredible just as you are. If Chris really loves you, he'll be the one to stand up to his family for you. You can't fight this battle alone." Lily looked at Ellie, the words sinking in. Maybe Ellie was right. Maybe she wasn't the one who had to prove herself. Maybe it was Chris's turn. But would he? Would he risk losing his family for her? Later that evening, when Chris arrived at her apartment, Lily was determined. She needed to have a conversation with him, one that would make things clear. As he walked in, his face softened when he saw her. She could tell he was already preparing an apology, but she wasn't ready to hear it. She needed answers, not apologies, Chris, she said firmly, sitting on the couch and motioning for him to join her. We need to talk. He looked at her with concern, sitting down beside her. I know, Lily. I know things were rough last night. My mom. She didn't mean it. No, Chris, I'm done with excuses. She cut him off. I need to know something. How much do you care about me, really? How much are you willing to fight for me? Because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending that your world is okay for me. I can't keep being this girl who's constantly trying to prove I belong. I need to know if you'll stand by me, if you'll stand up for me, or if you'll let your family decide for us. Chris looked stunned by her words. His eyes searched hers, and for a moment Lily felt vulnerable, exposed. She had never been this direct with him, and it scared her. But it was the only way forward, Lily. I don't know what to say. He whispered, Of course I care about you, but my family, they've been everything to me. I don't know how to make them accept you. I want to, but it's not easy. I'm torn. Lily, torn. The word hit Lily like a punch to the stomach. Was that how he truly felt? Torn between his love for her and his loyalty to his family. Could she continue to live in that uncertainty? Then maybe we shouldn't be together. Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She stood up, her heart racing in her chest. Maybe we need to take a step back and figure out what we really want, because if you can't choose me, then I have to walk away. I won't keep fighting this battle by myself. Chris was silent, and in that silence, Lily could hear everything. The weight of his indecision, the uncertainty about their future. Her chest tightened. This wasn't just about her, this was about their future. Their happiness, and Lily was starting to realize that she couldn't make this decision alone anymore. She couldn't change who she was to fit into his world. She would have to be enough on her own. Lily walked to the door, glancing back at Chris. I need some time to think. We'll talk soon. As the door closed behind her, the sound echoed through her apartment, louder than ever. The reckoning, the wake after the disastrous party, was a blur for Lily. Every time she closed her eyes, the images from that night played on a loop, the whispers, the judgmental glances, the feeling of being an outsider in a world she didn't belong to. It was all too much. The sting of humiliation still lingered, and it pushed her further into herself. But amidst all the pain, something within her had shifted. The more she replayed the events in her mind, the more she realized how much she had tolerated. How much she had let her dreams be stifled by her insecurities, her fear of not fitting in, and the overwhelming power of the Harrison family. She had spent the past few days avoiding Chris, even though he had called and texted multiple times. Part of her wanted to hear him apologize, but another stronger part of her told her to be strong and stand on her own. To not let him think that she was still the girl willing to ignore her own worth for the sake of a relationship that had become a symbol of everything she hated about the world she was trying to escape. The morning of her decision came as she sat in the small cafe by her apartment. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the street. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone. Chris had messaged her again. Lily, please, let's talk. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I need you to understand. She sighed deeply, her fingers hovering over the screen. Part of her wanted to tell him everything she had been holding in, to pour out her anger, her frustration, and her hurt. But instead, she took a deep breath and typed something simpler. Chris, we need to talk, but not now. I have to figure out where I stand. Lily stared at the message for a moment before hitting send. She closed her eyes, hoping that this time it would be different, that she wouldn't let herself be pulled back into the world of wealth and power that had tried to break her down. Later that afternoon, she received a message from an unexpected source. Victoria Harrison, Chris's mother. It was a short, almost cryptic text. Lily, I would like to see you. There's something we need to discuss. Lily hesitated. She had long since given up on trying to understand Victoria's manipulative ways, but the message felt different. This wasn't a request to belittle her. It felt like something more. Perhaps it was her way of redeeming herself, of admitting that Lily wasn't just some pawn in the family's game of power. Maybe this was the moment that would change everything. Without thinking much further, Lily responded, I'll meet you. The meeting was set at one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city, a place where only the elite were allowed to dine. When Lily arrived, she felt the familiar pressure of being out of place, but she forced herself to stay composed. The moment she stepped into the extravagant space, she saw Victoria sitting at a table by the window, dressed in a sleek black dress. Her usual commanding presence softened somehow. It was as if this meeting was as much for her as it was for Lily. Lily walked over, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what this conversation would bring, but she was ready for anything. Victoria looked up, her sharp eyes scanning Lily. "I'm glad you came," she said. Her voice tinged with something Lily hadn't expected, genuine respect. "I know you've been through a lot, and I'm not proud of how things have gone." Lily raised an eyebrow, still unsure if this was some kind of game. "And why should I believe you now?" Victoria sighed, pushing aside her elegant glass of wine. "Because I was wrong. I've spent years trying to control everything and everyone around me, including Chris. And it's only now that I see how wrong I was, especially when it comes to you." Lily sat down, her body tense. "You've always tried to break me, Victoria. Your whole family has. So what's your game now?" Victoria's eyes softened, the hardness that had once defined her melting away. "I know, and I can't take back what I've done, but I want you to understand something. When I saw how much Chris loves you, how much you mean to him, I realized I was part of the reason he was never truly happy. I kept pushing him away from what he really wanted, from who he really loved. And I can't be the reason he loses that anymore." Lily's breath caught in her throat. "You're saying you want me to be with him?" Victoria shook her head. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I want you to choose your path, whether it includes him or not. But don't let my family or the wealth or my expectations make you feel like you're less than you are. You've shown more strength than I ever gave you credit for, and I admire that." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. Lily was speechless for a moment, her mind racing with what Victoria had said. Could it be that this was a genuine attempt at reconciliation? Was this the change she had been hoping for, or was it just another ploy? She couldn't be sure, but what she did know was that she couldn't keep living in a world where she had to compromise her identity for the sake of others. She had already given up too much of herself. "I appreciate this, Victoria," Lily said slowly, "but I need to find my own way. I can't let anyone decide my life for me. Not even you." Victoria nodded, her eyes a mixture of regret and understanding. "I respect that, Lily, and whatever you choose, know that I'll support it." As Lily left the restaurant that afternoon, her heart felt lighter, freer. She had finally taken the first step in reclaiming her power. She wasn't going to be anyone's pawn anymore, and as much as she cared about Chris, she knew she had to do this for herself. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Lily was ready to face whatever came her way on her own terms. The final choice. Lily woke up with the faintest sense of peace in the air, the kind that arrived only when a long journey had come to an end, when everything settled into place. The past few months had been a whirlwind of change, self-discovery, and painful lessons. But now, as she stood by the window looking out at the soft glow of the city, she felt ready for whatever would come next. She had made her choice, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like the right one. She had always been caught in the whirlwind of others' expectations, the pressure to fit into a world that never quite made room for her. But now she understood that true strength came not from bending to those expectations, but from standing firm in her own identity, her own beliefs. She had learned to walk away from things that were no longer serving her, even when it meant walking away from the Harrison family and their world of wealth and privilege. Her phone buzzed on the table, and when she saw the name flash on the screen, a smile tugged at her lips. It was Chris. "Lily, I know I've made mistakes. I've hurt you, and I hate that I did. But I can't imagine my life without you. I want to be with you if you'll have me." She sat quietly for a moment, reading the words over and over. There was a time when she had wondered if they were meant to be together, but now it was clearer than ever. They had both gone through their individual journeys, and together they had learned and grown. They had faced challenges and mistakes, but they had faced them together, and that was what mattered. Lily quickly typed a reply, her fingers steady as she expressed what had been in her heart for so long. "I'm ready, Chris. Let's build a future together. Let's make it ours." Almost immediately, her phone rang, and she didn't hesitate to answer. "Hey," Chris's voice came through a soft crack in his tone. "Are you sure about us? I mean, I don't want to mess things up again." Lily smiled softly, feeling the weight of everything they had been through. "I'm sure. I've been sure for a while now. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Not of us, not of what we can build. I don't deserve you," Chris said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'm going to spend every day trying to prove that I can be the man you need me to be." "You already are," Lily whispered. "We've both come so far, and we're not stopping now." They spent hours talking, making plans for the future, sharing hopes and dreams they hadn't fully realized until now. It wasn't perfect, but nothing ever was, but they were ready to face whatever came next together. Later that day, as Lily walked into her living room, she glanced at the small bundle of clothes she had packed for their weekend getaway, just the two of them, leaving behind the noise of the city for a while. She had a new sense of clarity, a deeper understanding of what mattered to her. It wasn't the money, the status, or the expectations of others. It was love, trust, and the ability to choose what was right for her, no matter how difficult that choice might be. She met Chris later that evening, the warmth in his eyes matching the hope that had bloomed inside her. Their weekend getaway was simple. No grand hotels, no lavish meals, just a small cabin by the lake where they could finally just be themselves without the weight of anyone else's expectations. As they walked along the water's edge hand in hand, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Days turned into weeks, and life with Chris was everything she had hoped for. There were still moments of doubt, but they faced them together. The world around them still carried its judgments, but they no longer cared. They knew who they were, and more importantly, they knew who they wanted to be. Meanwhile, the Harrison family continued their own struggles. Victoria had not taken kindly to Lily's departure from their world. But Charles, her son, had slowly started to understand the depth of his mother's actions. Though he still carried guilt for his complicity, he knew that his true loyalty was to Lily. It wasn't about wealth or status, it was about love and respect. Lily's relationship with her mother remained distant, though there were moments when Lily wondered if things could be different. She had forgiven her mother for the years of neglect, but it would take time to rebuild trust. Lily wasn't in a rush to force things. She had learned that some wounds needed time to heal. One evening, as Lily and Chris sat on the porch of their new apartment watching the sunset together, Lily felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had found the respect she had always longed for, not from the world around her, but from within herself. "I used to think I needed to be someone else," Lily said softly, turning to Chris. "But now I know I just needed to be me." Chris smiled, squeezing her hand. "And I love you for exactly who you are." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, the weight of the past no longer heavy on her heart. She had made it through the storm, and now she could finally see the clear skies ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she whispered softly, "We've made it together." And for the first time in her life, she knew that everything would be okay. The future was uncertain, but with Chris by her side, Lily was ready to face whatever came next.